What are the reasons a jinni would enter inside your body? What would cause that?
We're going to talk about jinn possession. Reasons why possession occurs. Now I'm talking, why would the jinn possess somebody without being commanded or contracted to do so by a magician? I have written down three. The first is in order to further the aims of the shaitan. Secondly, if a person has harmed the jinn or their family, and again we see this many times. For example, they might go to the toilet and relieve themselves and not have the proper Islamic etiquette, and so they may end up sort of afflicting the jinn with something, and the jinn would return back in anger. Or likewise, they may harm some of their children or harm some of them by pouring boiling oil on them, pouring boiling water on them. The jinn can be harmed by some of the things that harm human beings, like boiling liquids and like other things.
Number three, ذكر شيخ الإسلام, love. That the jinni actually may love you. العشق, the lustful love. وذلك الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم told us what to do when we take off our clothes. Bismillah. If you say Bismillah, a curtain between you and the jinni. But how many of us come out of bed in the morning and you want to get your coffee from the kitchen? I stopped doing that after learning this. Guess what? The jinni is looking. And he's going to go inside that body. A lot of the sisters are possessed by jinn because of that reason, that the jinni actually likes the women. That's why the women also should be careful about the way that she dresses inside her bedroom. Can the jinni enter the body of the human just like that anytime? The answer is no. There are 4 conditions the jinni would enter into the body of the human.
A person perhaps might be at their most vulnerable to jinn possession at times when they forget Allah. And there are a number of evidences for this. The first is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever turns away and lives without the remembrance of Allah, we assign for them a shaitan that will accompany them. When you completely forget Allah is when you experience extreme emotions. I'm not talking about you get angry, but I'm talking you get so angry that you lose your mind. You no longer know what it is that you're saying. And it's a time when you are vulnerable to being attacked from the shaitan. And indeed the Prophet ﷺ warned against this kind of anger in the famous hadith, لا تغضب, do not become angry. Even when a person experiences extreme joy, extreme sadness, to the point where they no longer can control themselves and their bodies and what they're saying and what they're thinking, then this is a time when a person is particularly vulnerable. We also have an evidence from the Sunnah that a person is vulnerable in places that are particularly unclean or isolated. And the bathroom is a place which is particularly unclean, generally in comparison to the rest of the house. And indeed, the Prophet ﷺ would say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. And in one explanation of al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith is the male and the female jinn. O Allah, I seek refuge from you with the male and female, or from the male and female jinn. The second is, as I said, the dua for intimate relations. Allahumma jannibna ash-shaytan wa jannib ash-shaytana ma razaqtana. O Allah, keep the shaitan away from us and keep the shaitan away from the children that you give us. Again, this indicates to us, this is a time when, in terms of personal cleanliness, you are less clean than other times. In terms of your remembrance of Allah, you are further away from the remembrance of Allah than at other times, and therefore the shaitan has a degree of influence, or a potential degree of influence over you, and you have a dua that pushes the shaitan away from you at this time. When you go to a new place, you say, A'udhu bi kalimati Allahi tammati min sharri ma khalaq. I seek refuge with the perfect words of Allah from the evil that He has created, and no evil will touch you in that place. So you're in somewhere that's particularly isolated and deserted, or you end up in a new place, you drive into a new city, you climb out of your car, you say these words, nothing will afflict you.